off and running on a Wednesday, Masters Eve, par 3 today down there in Augusta, Georgia. Rain on the way to Augusta. Could be a sloppy first round. A lot to get to from the Masters coming up in just a little bit as Steve Sands live from Augusta, Golf Channel, NBC. He will join us this hour. Matt Humans in hour number 3 to talk Masters. A lot of NFL draft discussion on the show today. Thor Nystrom in hour number 2. Mike Golick Jr. coming up in less than 15 minutes. But let's start with the breaking news. This coming down just about 10 minutes ago, JVT. Giannis Antetokounmpo, who went down in a heap of pain last night, and every Bucks fan, every futures holder, every NBA fan, I would say, was pretty nervous that, oh boy, here we go again. Another Achilles pop. He's done for the year. The good news that came out this morning, it was a calf strain. The unfortunate news for the Bucks is that he will miss the final 3 games of the regular season, as just reported, courtesy of the Bucks. The Bucks put it out themselves, so it wasn't reported by anybody. But now begs the question, how healthy will he be come the start of the postseason, and what seed ultimately, because it is not an easy final 3 games for these Bucks, JVT, what seed will the Bucks be?
Yep. So we do have some insight into how long this might be. Damian Lillard, his teammate,
said it last night.
Yeah, said it last night. He suffered the exact same injury at one point in his career, and this is from the post-game presser. The question was asked to him, is that something, the calf injury, you were able to rehab pretty quickly, or did you need to take some time off? Said Lillard, quote, "When I did it, I strained my calf. Then I came back after, I'd say, 8 or 9 days. Came back from the calf. Then I strained it, had the soleus injury right after I came back. It was about a game or 2 after I did my soleus. After that, it was 2 weeks. So it was like 2 weeks, then I came back and played. So 2 weeks is a general timeline that we can kind of expect this to happen. Now, you are somewhat lucky because we have, this week, obviously.
Yep.
Then you have essentially a week off until the first round begins because you have to get the play-ins done. And then, of course, play starts the next weekend. So you're going to get some time to recover. The question is this 2-week timeline going to bleed in maybe to like a game 1? Will he be ready for a game 1 series against whoever that might be? And Tim will take you back to last year. Remember, he missed time at the beginning of the series against Miami Heat last year. He did get injured. And then what happened? Well, they lost that series. And this is a team that is, of course, as we know, kind of scuffling around. I think you throw the result out of yesterday, as we discussed, seemed like one of those scheduled losses given the situation. Boston sitting their front court, not really caring. Weird game in which you only had no fouls? No,
2 free throws.
2 free throws, excuse me, thank you very much.
Giannis shot 2 free throws. Celtics shot none.
Yeah, it was weird.
Game finished in less than 2 hours.
It was good. We'll take it. So I think you're getting a basic timeline of about 2 weeks. And I think that's your worry is, how healthy is he? Do you want to push him to come back? Because, again, calves are tricky. You don't want to accelerate that timeline when you don't have to, because if you're using the calf muscle the way it should not be used, then, of course, that leads to potential other damage. So the timeline we can generally say is 2 weeks, but I still think you're somewhat nervous here if you have a Milwaukee Bucks ticket, if you're a Milwaukee Bucks supporter. As we just saw last year, missing time at the beginning of a series can put you in a little bit of a hole that ultimately you can't dig out of. So I think you're a little bit worried. And to top it off, as you mentioned, you get the Orlando Magic today. You've got another game with Orlando, right? These 2 games will decide whether or not you're going to be that 2 seed. And you could fall to 3, where you get an Indiana Pacers team that you're 1-4 against this season. You get Joel Embiid and the Philadelphia 76ers potentially in the first round. It could be a nightmare.
Heat who knocked them out last year.
Exactly, man. It could be a nightmare for Milwaukee now as we move forward.
And, oh, by the way, so it's Magic, then it's at Thunder, at Magic, and the Thunder are playing for the number 1 seed in the Western Conference.
And looking for a little bit of revenge, because remember, 2 weeks ago, we thought that Milwaukee was turning things around. Yep. They wiped the floor with the Oklahoma City Thunder. You thought, okay, cool, here we go. This is the start of something, and then they went on this slide. So that's going to be tough, not only because the Thunder have something to play for, they're probably going to remember the last time they played, and they're going to probably want to exact a little bit of revenge on what happened, or because of what happened the last time these 2 teams met. So, no, it's a terrible schedule for them and a terrible situation.
So as we sit here, shortly removed from the national championship game where UConn, beats Purdue, wins with relative ease, and
I had to get one last college basketball reference.
Well, I'm going somewhere with this. I promise. I'm going somewhere with this. So I bring that up because yesterday we discussed the prop that was placed at Circa in late February. Purdue and UConn versus the Fields, plus 260, minus 330 on the field. Ultimately, that was an easy winner for anybody who placed the plus money because they played each other in the championship. I bring that up because as we take a look at the yes-no Eastern Conference prop right now, it continues to rise at Circa. It is now up to minus 205 on the Celtics to win the Eastern Conference. So, as always, look around. But as this news comes out regarding Giannis, now Joel Embiid is coming back, so that's a good news for the Philadelphia 76ers. At what point are we looking at the Celtics team and saying, we just should lay it for them to win the Eastern Conference?
I would say the time has kind of passed already. Like when we were talking underneath that $2 mark, when we were looking at minus 150 or so, I know that's the odds that we have up on the screen. I think that's somewhat playable when you're looking at that. But I'll say this. You mentioned like the fly in the ointment. For me, it's not Milwaukee anymore. It's Joel Embiid in the Philadelphia 76ers. Embiid was having an incredible year. And since he's come back, Tim...
Just real quickly, just to jump in, that minus 150 is still available at DraftKings. So, always look around. 205 is the price here at Circa. Minus 150 if you want to jump in on the Boston Celtics. So let's just use that as the jump-off point, that minus 150 is available, readily available at DraftKings. Would that be a price looking at?
I think that's that's where you're going. Like that's the price that you would lay. Yeah. Nothing worse than what you're looking at if you wanted to get involved. But as I mentioned, like Embiid is the fly in the ointment here. Embiid, in the 4 games since he's come back, 30 points, 8.3 rebounds, 4.8 assists, on 52% shooting from the floor, 47% shooting from 3. He seems to have picked up right where he left off. And so that is like a pretty big deal. Now, again, I get it. The fact that Joel Embiid and the 76ers have not had that postseason success, have not made it to that Eastern Conference Finals, all those sort of things, play into this. But the low-key thing, and remember, I mentioned this to you last week, the very quiet news of the other day is that D'Anthony Melton also came back from injury. And for the Philadelphia 76ers, when they were really rolling, that was part of their best lineup was Joel Embiid out there on the floor with D'Anthony Melton and this crew. And you have the new pieces, right? You do have other guys now. You got Buddy Hield coming off of the bench. Kelly Oubre obviously has been part of this team all season long. Kyle Lowry can be a good defensive point guard coming off of the bench if you need him too. So if all of a sudden you're going to start to be healthy, I think that's why I go to at least minus 150 is probably the best you want to do it, because there is a reality in which Joel Embiid is Joel Embiid, and he can win a series. And I get that you don't want to buy into it because of lack of postseason success, but we talk about this all the time. I mentioned it to you. It's never happened until it happens. And you don't want to be on the wrong end of that if that's going to be the case. So I think minus 150 is probably like the ceiling of what you want to lay here with Boston, because there is a reality in which Joel Embiid comes out and plays pretty well and, of course, can win a series because he is a superstar.
Milwaukee right now a 2-point home underdog tonight against the Orlando Magic. Orlando losing yesterday, so important for Milwaukee. They get the win. They now have a little bit of wiggle room. Actually, at this moment in time, Orlando has dropped to the 4 seed, and the Knicks have jumped to the 3 seed. So a lot to figure out as we move forward. Bottom of the hour, we'll get more into the clinching side of things, but a lot of notable folks being out tonight. Do we want to run through who is in and who is out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We're here until 6 p.m., so I don't know if we're going to have all the time in the world. By the way, really quickly, to add to the point, I just wanted to throw this out there. Joel Embiid and D'Anthony Melton on the floor together, just in general, when they're on the floor, a plus 14.1 net rating, or you outscore opponents by 14.1 points every 100 possessions. Tim, their best lineup with those two, Tyrese Maxey, D'Anthony Melton, Nick Batum, Tobias Harris, Joel Embiid, a plus 33.3 net rating. So, they're really freaking good, which is why I think this team is somewhat dangerous. So, look, today is a fascinating day because you have a lot of guys who are in question when it comes to whether or not they're going to play. I think going to the headliner, which ties into what we saw last night, a lot of people, I got a tweet, it was like, what are we doing here with the Phoenix Suns? Like, they just lost outright yesterday to the Los Angeles Clippers. Now they're laying about 7. I think it's up to 8.5 right now.
11 right now.
Is it up to 11?
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason behind that. Nobody's playing for the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, the Clippers did clinch the Pacific Division yesterday, and this is where, at this time of the year, it is so important to pay attention to where these teams are at with seeding, obviously what they have clinched, the motivation. We'll get into that with this Dallas-Miami game coming up a little bit later. But for the Clippers, they have essentially nothing to play for. They haven't locked the 4 seed yet, but it's going to be very hard for them to lose out on the 4 seed at this point, and they're a division winner. So, Paul George is out. James Harden is out. Obviously, we know Kawhi Leonard is out. Russell Westbrook is questionable. Vijay Zubac is questionable. And the big one, Josh Primo is out. So
that's why I went to 11.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're here. So not only do you have a Clippers team that is sitting everybody and could sit even more, right? I mean, I guess Bones Highland and Amir Coffey are going to be your starting backcourt for the Los Angeles Clippers today. You've got a Suns team that needs to continue to win to try to do something here to get out of the play. And so all of that stuff together, look, I am not one. I jokingly sent into our group chat, we're doing a Suns, Yankees, Rangers moneyline parlay today. But if you are of the ilk that likes to put moneyline parlays together, everybody's always looking to add that last one.
Yeah.
Suns would probably be at the top of the list of that last leg that you wanted to add or build the parlay around, because it seems very unlikely that they're going to lose this game here today.
Minus 525 at Circa. Looks like that's the cheapest price. Minus 550 at DraftKings. So, yes, to reiterate, tonight for the Los Angeles Clippers, Paul George, James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, all out for this game, and that's why you've seen the line move out to 11. And we'll go over some of the clinching scenarios and all of that discussion. It looks like Terry Rozier, I believe, was just ruled officially out for the Miami Heat. The Heat are catching 2.5 against the Dallas Mavericks at home. So that run we will certainly get into. We'll do best bets coming up bottom of the hour. Some Masters thoughts as well. We're going to do continue our NFL draft best bets and piggyback off a conversation we had yesterday regarding Bo Nix and where he could ultimately land. But I'm curious about the big fellas up front. Mike Golick Jr. I think he can help us assess who.
I also have to make fun of him.
Oh, yeah. What about what?
About Spencer Rattler.
Where will Spencer Rattler get drafted? Mike Golick Jr. joins us next.
This is VSiN PrimeTime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the sports betting network.
For a limited time, we've got the betting splits access open for free. Check it out now, vsin.com/splits. You can check out where the money and bets are moving over at DraftKings for every event, every day. Check it out now. Again, it's open to the public, vsin.com/splits.
What are people betting today? Well, they bet on the Giants, which is always a good thing when you're facing Patrick Corbin. So the 75% of folks that laid the chalk with the Giants, I believe it was 7-1.
Are we over 90% again for the Rangers today?
Well, that didn't work out yesterday, and we are 94% on the Rangers against the Oakland
Every dog has his day.
Athletics. All right, let's bring in our good friend. You can catch him on the network with his pops each and every day here on VSiN, as well gets the full 2 hours every day on DraftKings Network, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. It is Mike Golick Jr. All right, I don't even want to start. Do you want to start? You've been holding back on this, so I'm just going to sit back and enjoy.
Yeah, Golick, you avoided us last week, so I got to preface this by saying I enjoy your work. I'm a big fan, all right? I enjoyed now that we're colleagues of sorts, but I do have to make fun of you a little bit.
Perfect.
I saw one of your tweets last week. You don't really believe that Spencer Rattler can be a first-round pick, right?
No, not really. Let's put it this way. What I believe is that if we're talking about having 5 of these quarterbacks go in the first round, do I believe he's capable? Yes, because I've said all along, I really think there's 2 quarterbacks and then a bunch of guys that we're going to talk ourselves into in that range.
Right.
It's Caleb Williams, it's Drake May, and then I think there's a drop off between the next group of guys that we're talking about. And because the NFL loves quarterbacks, they're going to take a bunch of them in the first round. We could see 5 go in there. And if you're going to say, hey, there's 5 quarterbacks going in the first round, and we assume Jaden Daniels and J.J. McCarthy are the other ones, then I think Spencer Rattler could have his day in court. If we're talking about him, Michael Penix Jr., or Bo Nix, absolutely.
So I want to jump into this because yesterday we spent a lot of time on it, and we're going to replay. We're actually going to play the audio. I just read it yesterday because Todd McShay, your former colleague, was on a podcast, and he said everyone that he has talked to in the league has a second-round grade on Bo Nix. And then I was chatting with a couple other folks today, and, the arm strength's just not there. So there seems to be, Mike, a lot of groupthink. Like, well, Denver needs a quarterback, so they're going to take Bo Nix. He's, as, JVT has pointed out, well, he's short and white. He's like Drew Brees. Yeah, just put him in there, just like Sean Payton had. So what's your true evaluation on Bo Nix? And I'm not trying to say that he's a crappy quarterback, but a first-round pick is a lot of capital to put into a guy that, from the consensus, is great guy, coach's son. Probably not the guy you're going to want to roll out as your face of your franchise.
I was going to say, saying a guy's not a first-round pick is not the worst slight that we could say to someone. As a former undrafted free agent, life is pretty good outside the first round for a lot of the rest of those guys. And we've seen plenty of NFL quarterbacks come from later rounds. I mean, Dak Prescott was a fourth-round draft pick. We know Russell Wilson was taken later than that. There's plenty of things. But, yeah, when you look at it, what you're getting in the first round is usually someone who – production-wise, yeah, there's got to be enough to go on there, but does your physical makeup wind up in the box easy enough for these people to go to their billionaire bosses and say, I want to spend $25+ million on this guy, or else you're going to get fired? And yeah, I think when you're looking at Bo Nix, he would be one of those guys where if you're taking him in the middle of the first round, unless you've got a great system around you and you're a team that's in the middle range there that has all these other pieces that you can help insulate a guy like that, who by all accounts seems like a great kid, seems like he can digest the hell out of the playbook, makes incredible plays off script. I think that's the biggest strength I see on tape consistently for Bo Nix. But yeah, if you're taking him in the middle of the first round with the expectation of him walking in day one and being your starter, I don't know how well that's going to go for you.
Yeah, it's funny because I think back to, I spent a lot of time in minor league baseball, broadcasting, and you talk about the prospects, right? We've got Jackson Holliday coming up today for the Orioles. And I remember asking about this particular first-round pick. I won't mention his name. And I remember asking someone who played with him, I'm like, hey, what do you think about this guy? He's like, awesome dude. I'm like, oh, he has to suck. It's like when that's the first characteristic of like not a cannon for an arm or, blazing fat. And that's what I feel like Bo Nix is. Like everything you hear about him, awesome guy. I bet you he'll be in the league for 15 years. But he shouldn't be the 12th overall pick, and he shouldn't be a first-round pick. And I think what you just said, Mike, is fair. He can be fine. It doesn't have to be a first-round pick. And I think, and we've talked about it a lot. We fall in love because we're bored right now, right, Mike? We want to talk about quarterbacks. Quarterbacks, no offense to the position that you played, quarterbacks are sexy.
Use my favorite name. Power Johnson man out of Oregon, right? Nobody cares about Jackson Power Johnson or whatever the hell his name is, right?
Yeah, JPJ. Who I mean, listen, we're talking about a draft where I just saw Mel Kiper Jr.'s latest mock draft, and he's got Roger Rosengarten, the other tackle out of Washington, sneaking into the first round too. If you guys want to talk about beef in a way that gets sexy here, really fundamentally sound guy. I don't know if he's a little too stiff to actually be a first rounder in the league, but yeah, your point is that's going to drive people away. What I just did, talking about Bo Nix, guy people have seen going back to Auburn since he played his first game against, way back in the day, Justin Herbert and that Oregon team. It's very easy to sell people on the dream of that. And with quarterback, people can try and really project whatever they want in a lot of these cases. And so, yeah, I think ultimately Bo Nix is going to be a second-day guy. I think that's pretty comfortably a good spot for him. And we learned that last year, right, with a guy like Will Levis, who we all were convinced was going in the first round.
Hendon Hooker.
Because he's run a bunch of these offenses. Malik Willis was the same way. Oh, enticing physical gifts. And the league has kind of shown us, all right, we have this quarterback infatuation up until a certain point. This is at a time where the contracts are easier to get rid of than ever.
All right, so I'll read this. So let's. For me, it's the last one on the quarterbacks, but I think it's a good point in building on this, right, Mike? Which is Dante Kopelitz-Fleming. He's an NFL researcher. Tweeted this out about a month ago. From 2021 to 2022, there were 19 quarterbacks selected in the NFL draft. Only 2 of those 19 are expected to start week 1 when we come back. That would be Brock Purdy and Trevor Lawrence. Bucky Brooks added to that point and said, essentially, the NFL is a quarterback evaluation problem. They don't know how to evaluate these guys. They don't know how to develop them. Does that then extend to, well, if we have a problem evaluating these guys, why don't we just draft the offensive lineman or the edge rusher or the wide receiver instead and grab some of these guys with less expensive picks in the second round? And there is a reality in which 4 and, dare I say, maybe even only 3 guys go in the first round.
So it's tough. And I think, honestly, not to veer too much into commentary on that take, but I think that means most teams in the league have a problem evaluating themselves. Mm-hmm. Like most teams in the league have a problem deciding, hey, if our environment's actually a place that's suitable to develop a young quarterback, if we've got the coaches to make that happen, if we've got the rest of the roster around that, and we're honest enough with ourselves about where we actually sit. I think that's the biggest thing that most teams get themselves into trouble with. But I think in this case here, the one thing that does make it difficult financially, and Bill Barnwell did a great job writing up on this, is the hit rate you need to have on quarterbacks to justify the savings that you get on these guys if you do nail one in the first round is staggeringly different than every other position. Just knowing what these guys fetch on the open market once you get to veterans and how much that savings is there. I understand maybe we overblew the, rookie, quarterback on a rookie deal, first round quarterback, you got to make hay, but it's still a considerable amount of savings. And for a lot of these teams, what we're not talking about with many of those teams that got rid of their quarterbacks, even the first rounders, is, oh, well, now they're crippled for years to come. Now the league's shown you can kind of replace some of that a little bit faster than maybe we anticipated, or with a little bit more ease than we anticipated. So I think that's why some teams are still comfortable with the risk.
Mike Golic Jr. joining us here on VSiN Primetime. Of course, you can catch Gojo and Golic live every morning on the DraftKings Network, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern Time, and then hear a portion of that show here on VSiN every weekday from noon to 1 p.m. All right, let's get to your comfort zone offensive lineman. So I was all ready to give out this bet that you could bet here in town. Joe Alt under 7.5 at minus 145 juice. I've had a little hesitation. There's been a couple murmurs out there. Lance Zierlein pointed it out on Twitter today that maybe there's going to be an upset brewing at OL1. So you've been convinced. Initially it wasn't Alt. Now it is Alt. Where do you think Joe Alt makes a lot of sense? And could he be supplanted as the top offensive lineman selected, in your opinion?
I mean, there's always an outside chance, but at this point, I'm rocking with Joe. I mean, listen, when you talk about a draft class this crowded at the top with quality beef, the first round we've talked about between edge players, guys that can kick inside, there's a ton of really good names that I could barf back at you right now. But the thing Joe Alt affords you is twofold. He affords you incredible upside still as a guy who's 21, I think going to be 22 when by the time he takes his first snap this fall, with incredible athletic ability and still plenty of time to develop for a guy that we know made the transition from tight end to offensive line when he was going to high school to college and all those different things. But he's also really technically sound. He's got incredibly long arms. Stature-wise, he's everything you could ask for. And so I don't see him getting past 7. I mean, between the Chargers and Tennessee, those are two teams that absolutely could and should take him. And I would be stunned if someone else but went before him for any number of those reasons.
Last 45 seconds, who's the second offensive lineman?
Second offensive lineman, I could see Talisi Fuaga ended up being that guy. Loved his tape. I think he could kick inside and play guard for you, but you can start him at right tackle. Incredibly sound pass protector, incredibly square body, and an absolute road grader off the line of scrimmage if you want what we think of as a true, tried and traditional right tackle.
He is Mike Golic Jr. Catch him each and every weekday here on VSiN from noon to 1, and catch it live on DraftKings Network. Mike, always appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys.
There he is, Mike Golic Jr., joining us on our progressive guest line. We'll do some more NFL draft best bets. We'll do that at the top of the next hour. But our best bets for tonight, maybe a little Masters action as well. We'll do that coming up in just a little bit. Also, update you on all the breaking injury news and who's in, who's out for tonight in the NBA.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSiN.com, folks. It is absolutely wonderful because we changed it up about a month and a half ago. But the reason why it's great, you've got a lot of stuff up there. We've got analysis on the full card of NBA games, including, of course, insight onto what is at stake in terms of clinching scenarios today. You've got best bets in Major League Baseball. You've got Masters best bets for Met and Humans. And the betting splits are open to all. Check it out now at VSiN.com and check out those splits at VSiN.com/splits.
A lot of day baseball today. Right now, looking up at JVT's beloved Angels.
Beloved is strong.
Hey, you like them.
If Artie Moreno sells them, then they'll be a beloved. Sell the team, Artie.
Still to come tonight, I believe Derek Stevens and company still in San Diego. They're taking the whole series in? Maybe. But the Padres taking on the Cubs. That game getting ready here in just a couple of moments as
I don't think I'd survive that.
3 days in San Diego?
I love it out there so much. I don't know if I'd survive.
And some self-control, my man. Can't survive 3 days in San Diego?
No, come on.
You live in Las Vegas.
Come on. We don't have a beach. What is it, the Gaslamp District or whatever? Like, that's the spot where you go for games. The afterwards in the out there in Arizona right next to Chase Field, that area sucks. There's nothing going on there. But out there in San Diego, oh, yeah.
It is... I can confirm.
Little Italy, right? That area too?
It is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great out there.
I flew down there last year, and I didn't even get an Uber. I just got off the plane and I walked. About like 2-3 mile walk, stopped for lunch, got a beer.
Tremendous.
Saw the Nats whoop up on the Padres. Great day. Great day. I need to get back down there. We got to figure out.
That's funny. I was there watching a Nationals-Padres game, too.
Really?
Yeah. Did Joe Musgrove start?
No.
Oh, okay. I was like, maybe we were there the same day.
No. Yeah, but you weren't on this show then, so I didn't.
Got a beer bat.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Maybe we'll have to do a road trip. We'll have to do a VSiN PrimeTime field trip. How about that? All right, but let's get to it a little.
Charge Bill.
As we do. Bottom of the hour. Best bets. Best bets. All right.
Sorry.
Well, while we wait, should we get into... Okay. Here we go. Graphic time.
Come on.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
All right. NBA bet came home. Yeah, Bucks. Way to go.
One of the year, right?
Way to go, Bucks. 1-0. Should I retire?
Sure.
I actually love betting the NBA playoffs. I know that you are getting a bit frustrated at the end of the season here, but best bet for me.
Talking about double overtime loser with +4 yesterday in the Atlanta Hawks. Nah, come on.
I will say I did get we got the group the text in the group text saying, "Hey, what could go wrong? Headed to double overtime."
Yep.
And sure enough,
I knew it.
Exactly.
I knew it.
We all know. So our dog's gonna die. You know, as Matt Humans likes to say, worst thing is hope.
Yep. Overtime, it's risky.
You're done.
When you get to double overtime,
Oh.
I was like, the rope is getting let go of right now. It's totally
Not to bring back terrible memories, and of course, this would be the second mention of college basketball in the first hour of the program, and the season ended on
It's over,
Monday.
Tim. Let it go.
Oregon double overtime against Creighton. Still painful. Still hurts. But we move on.
How about this? You want a deep cut?
Yeah, let's do it.
How about losing? I lost the under in UNLV St. Mary's when it went to double overtime. How about that? Remember that one? That was fun. We're talking non-conference, baby. Yeah, let's go.
One of these days, I want to be on these favorites that cover in overtime. All right, for me, as I mentioned, I am not a golf handicapper, but I like betting golf, especially the majors. We had Matt Brown on yesterday. We had Bob Herrig on yesterday. I listened to the Long Shots podcast with Kelly, Wes Reynolds, and Matt Brown, which I obviously suggest you listen to as well. And I read Matt Newman's column. Steve Sand's going to come up in just a little bit. I put all of them together, put them in a big melting pot here. I got two bets. I can't quit my guy X. Xander Schauffele, +130, top 10 is his price, not +185. +130 at DraftKings is his price. And then Hideki Matsuyama, that's your guy. That's your guy. I took a little outright on him, but
I got him an outright too.
But my two best bets will be Matsuyama, top 10, that's +185, available right now at Circa, and Xander Schauffele, +130, top 10, available at DraftKings. So those will be my two Masters sweats, and hopefully we're able to cash both at a plus money price. So those are my two best bets, and we will talk much more on the Masters. Steve Sands, Golf Channel, live from Augusta, coming up in less than 10 minutes. Matt Humans in Hour 3, and also read Matt's Best Bets article on VSiN.com. So those are my two best bets for this evening, Mr. Von Tobel. What do you got for us? We also got some clinching scenarios that people love to take a look at, but what do we got from a best bet perspective?
Yeah, so I do have, we'll go with this Suns-Clippers game, and I'll fully admit that I just saw this groupthink on social media, and I didn't have anything else that's available right now, so let's just throw this in and see what happens. Suns -3.5 first quarter here against the Los Angeles Clippers. Clippers are playing nobody. It looks like Russell Westbrook might even sit here today. We know Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, James Harden, all not going to play. Not only do the Suns have to continue to win, you would assume, after falling down, I think it was 34-3 yesterday, 35-4, whatever it was in the first quarter.
35-4?
Yeah.
53-20 in the second quarter?
By the way, you know my existence as not only a bettor but a sports fan, that I was locked in at 35-4. I was like, no, there's no way this lasts. Regardless, Suns first quarter -3.5. You would expect a very spirited effort here against a team that's probably going to start Bones Highland and Amir Coffey in their backcourt with a little bit of revenge on the mind and the need to win to stay out of a play-in. A little risky. It's a very, very inflated number. But just to give some action here, let's go Suns first quarter -3.5. Jumped on some overnights yesterday, but a lot of those numbers are gone. So let's go Suns first quarter -3.5.
And as JVT alluded to, the absences for the Clippers, Giannis, the news regarding him, he is out the remainder of the regular season. The news that came out this morning, better than better than hoped, or better than anticipated, I should say, would make more sense, with that is not a popped Achilles, but it is a calf strain. So the Magic play the Bucks tonight. They're laying 2 on the road in Milwaukee. We get to some of the Eastern Conference clinch scenarios. So currently, Orlando is a game back of the Milwaukee Bucks for the 2nd spot. The Knicks are also in the mix as well. They currently own the 3rd spot due to tiebreakers. So looking at one of the playoff scenarios tonight, Orlando clinches a playoff spot with a win or losses by Cleveland and Miami. They also clinch the Southeast Division title with a win. So looking at Orlando, Milwaukee's in there too. They clinched the Central Division with a win or a Cleveland loss. Knowing there's no Giannis, they are on the road, knowing that they need some wins to try to jump out of where they sit. Is Orlando a look at laying 2 versus a Giannis-less Bucks team?
So it's actually now down to 1.
Okay.
And this is the news. And yes, it's worth a look, but then I would also then move my eyes to Milwaukee actually here.
Okay.
Only because, look, Chris Middleton's also not going to play today. So Giannis is out. Chris Middleton's out. It's just going to be Damian Lillard on his own. Having said that,
Bobby Portis, baby.
Yes, Bobby Portis, right. But, I mean, but you do, I think the positive here is you revert back to a form of, like, Portland Trailblazers basketball, right? Because Damian Lillard was the focal point of that offense, and you could get some positives here. But the big news, which is why this number's moving down, is that Franz Wagner's not going to play. So this was interesting. So I wrote about this yesterday in the column, and I mentioned it again here today. You know, the market was kind of gung-ho on Orlando yesterday because, hey, they got to win, right? It's Houston and all this. But it kind of ignored the fact that they were kind of beat up. Jonathan Isaac was questionable. Franz Wagner was questionable as well. Isaac played. Wagner didn't. And then again here today, market moves in favor of Orlando, kind of ignoring the fact that we don't know if Wagner's going to play. And then sure enough, he's ruled out once more. That's your second, third leading scorer here on a team that kind of stinks on offense. So that's a pretty big deal. So I would not be surprised if maybe this closes about pick. I still think that when you look at these two teams, Milwaukee, even without Giannis and Chris Middleton, at the very least deserve to be a small favorite on their home floor. So for me, it would just be this. We're kind of getting these scenarios now, Tim, where it's reminiscent of Week 17 in the National Football League, or I guess now Week 18.
Yeah.
Which would be just because you have to win doesn't mean you're going to, and it doesn't mean you're going to cover. So you're seeing some of these massive numbers for teams that are in these scenarios. For example, like I wrote about this today too, you know, Cleveland's up to a 19.5-point favorite. A team that is covered 4 of their last, I think, 21 games is laying 19.5 points today against the Memphis Grizzlies. I get it. There's nobody playing, but we're kind of at this point where I think I'm leaning more toward playing against some of these teams in these bad spots because the market's over-evaluating what you guys need to do or what these teams need to do in these scenarios. So especially with Wagner out, I think the Bucks are pretty live, even without Chris Middleton and Giannis Antetokounmpo. And by the way, should note, for those interested, without Giannis on the floor this year, a negative 5.2 net rating, a 113.2 offensive rating, or a 118.4 defensive rating. In other words, those numbers, how much you score or give up per 100 possessions, has not been good in the non-Giannis minutes for what it matters.
So let me ask you this, and we only got a little bit left. Dallas right now is playing Miami. This number's sitting at 2.5. Good news from the injury front for Miami, right? They're going to have Heroes available, Bam's available, Jaime Jaquez is available. So Duncan Robinson is out. Terry Rozier is out as well. But this number, I think, opened 5, is down to 2.5. Is that we sit at 2.5 right now?
Actually got as high as 6.5. Yeah.
So the clinching scenario is, hey, they can win the Southeast Division. Who cares? Right? Does it matter anymore? Do we care? Is that even a motivational factor?
Well, I think it is, but again, here's the thing: the magic number
doesn't affect the seeding.
No, it locks you into the play. They're already locked in. It's like they're going to be fine. The thing here is, of course, is that your magic number's 1 just to clinch your spot. You still have a game against Detroit. We'll have more on this, but there is maybe some questions as to who's going to play.
That's Jonathan Von Tobel. I'm Tim Murray. The Masters gets going tomorrow. Scotty Scheffler, a massive favorite. Will he put on the green jacket again? Steve Sands joins us next.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Action-packed fight card taking over Las Vegas for UFC 300 and DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of UFC, is giving new customers a shot to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any UFC 300 bet. Hey, 150 is half of 300. Get it? Download the app. Use promo code VSiN when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours.
Alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, I am Tim Murray. The Masters gets going tomorrow. And we will talk to Matt Humans later on in the show. Make sure you head over to vsin.com for all of the content that we have for the Masters. And make sure you get the latest episode of the Long Shots podcast. But let's head down to Augusta, Georgia, and bring in Steve Sands from the Golf Channel. Frequent guest on the program, my good friend. He joins us on the Progressive Guest Line. All right, Steve, before we get into the golf, I'm going to make you put on a different hat, your Jim Cantore hat. And what are we looking like weather-wise tomorrow at the Masters? Word on the street, some thunderstorms could be rolling in.
Have you ever seen Jim Cantore in person?
He's jacked, isn't he?
I mean, absolutely jacked. I mean, it is unreal standing next to him. Now, he's about the height of Bob Costas, but he is absolutely yoked, man. I mean, it is amazing. Jim would love tomorrow because Jim loves the nasty weather. So tomorrow morning is not supposed to be pretty here in Augusta. Thunderstorms, big wind. I don't think they'll play until at least noon, maybe 1 or 2 o'clock. So that'll be a tough spot for everybody who's anticipating, the first day of the Masters, which is pretty much everybody in sports. But we'll have to wait and see. They have not made an announcement yet. We're getting close to 7 p.m. Eastern. Usually when this is the case here at Augusta, they will make an announcement on the night before so that the people who are going in with tickets, have an understanding that they're not going to wake up at 6 a.m. to line up and go in there. So we'll have to wait and see. But as of now, they have not called anything yet.
So at this point right now, Steve, the big storyline, of course, is Scottie Scheffler being an overwhelming favorite to win this thing. Is he deserving of this price with what we've seen from him?
You know what, John? It's interesting. Yes, he is. I just don't think anybody in golf should be favored by that much because golf is just so random. There are 89 invitees here. Now, 89 players can't win here. There's probably only 30, 35 of those 89 who could legitimately win here. But last I saw, you tell me, last I saw was like plus 350. I mean, that's a short number, man.
Shortest, Steve, just to jump in, it's the shortest since Tiger in 2013. He's 4-1 right now at DraftKings.
That's what I was going to say. It's a short number for someone not named Tiger. And Tiger in his heyday, it's telling you what the odds makers think of Scottie's game and the people he's playing against, that he has a Tiger-type number on him. I don't love betting the chalk anyway, although I did think that Scottie was the play at the Players, and he was a short number there too. But 350 is just that's tight. I will say this: if he putts well, forget it, because the ball striking is going to be there. His ball striking is outrageous. He's playing so great. If the putter just gets into the microwave and warms up, let alone gets hot, if it just cooperates, then he's going to be right there on the leaderboard. And Scottie doesn't give many away. So if he's there, he usually closes.
So given the field, all that kind of stuff, and outright at that short price does seem a little wild. What about a top 10 at about a minus 200 price? Would that be more palatable?
Oh, man. I think for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think betting him to win is a good play. I just can't believe it's that short of a number for a guy who's won one major championship, although he is the best player in the world and he is playing well coming in. He also was number one in the world, interestingly, 2 years ago. Only 5 players ranked number one in the world have ever won the Masters while being ranked number one, and Scottie is one of them. So he knows what it's like to be the favorite. He knows what it's like to be the hunted. He knows what it's like to handle the pressure here. And, all those factors probably have played into the reasoning as to why he's such a heavy favorite. I mean, that is a really, really short price for somebody in this sport.
Steve Sands, Golf Channel, NBC, joining us live from Augusta on a Progressive Guest Line. Masters gets going tomorrow. Last year's champ, Jon Rahm. A lot of people said you're getting angry Rahm. He makes the decision to go to LIV. Now he's been critical of LIV, and are we going to get the merger and all of that? So what type of Jon Rahm are we going to see in Augusta? He's sitting around 10-1, Steve, to repeat as Masters champ.
Yeah, look, the odds are against a repeat because only 3 have ever done it. Tiger, Jack, and Nick Faldo are the only 3. And this is the 88th Masters, so it's only been done 3 times. I don't know. Yeah, certain times I think John Rahm's going to play great because he loves the golf course, knows the golf course, and those are two huge factors. He's won here, obviously. He's the defending champion, so he has the confidence to get it done here. On the other side, I think, boy, he hasn't played, a regular schedule. It's the first time he's playing in the Masters since joining LIV, which means his preparation is completely different than what it would be, in normal years coming to a major championship. And I don't know. He's not playing that great, although LIV golf is completely different than, PGA Tour golf and certainly Masters golf. So I don't know. I don't think I would fade John. I just am not in love with him right now at 10-1. Although 10-1, man, he's, like I said, there are not a lot of guys who can win this thing. That's pretty good. And now you're talking me into it.
I like it. All right, Steve, so I always like to ask this version of the question, which is, who is a guy coming into this that you would absolutely stay away from in terms of predicting to win this thing, top 20, anything like that?
Ooh, man, that's a good question. Justin Thomas isn't playing great right now. He just switched caddies. Victor Hovland is not playing great, and he's all over the place. Like, he's all over the place with instructors. He's all over the place with what he's saying. So I think I would fade Victor Hovland.
All right, Steve, let's get to who you do like at the current prices. So I was texting with you yesterday, Hideki Matsuyama, a guy that JVT, you cashed on his future a couple of years ago when he won the Masters. He sits around 20-1. He's getting some money in the outright market. I bet some Matsuyama to make it top 10 at plus 185. So who are some guys that you do like, whether it's not, outright would be nice, but you really feel like the way they're playing right now, top 5, top 10 would certainly be a look for a particular bet for them?
I like Tyrrell Hatton. He's a pretty, you have to go down the list to see what he's.
Yeah, you do.
His number's got to be
55-1, 55-1 to win it outright, 4-1 top 10.
Yeah, I like Tyrrell Hatton to play well. He's a tough customer. You talk about an angry golfer. He can get angry on you. I think that Tyrrell is going to play well. I think Ludwig Oberg. What's his number?
So I wanted to bring him up because I was looking at the top debutant finisher, that market out there, because as Wes Reynolds will let you know, and you've mentioned it too, Fuzzy Zeller, the last debutant to win it, right, the first time at.
Can I use that tomorrow on the air, Tim? Debutante?
Yeah, debutante, right?
Wow.
Top debutante, Ludwig Oberg, plus 275. Wyndham Clark, plus 330. Bhatia, the guy who just won at the this past weekend, he sits at plus 85. My guy, your guy, the DC guy, Denny McCarthy, 9-1. So, yeah, run us through that. Who do you think is the top debutante?
Debutante. That is such a great word. I might even say that on the air and reference you, Tim. I'm not a big verbal plagiarizer. I don't believe in that, but I think it'd be great to do that. So I think of the first timers. It's funny. Akshay Bhatia is not going to win, but I think he's playing great and he has a lot of confidence. And I love lefties here. From 2003 to 2014, so from 2003 to 2014, there were 12 Masters played. 6 of them were won by lefties. Mike Weir in 03, Mickelson in 4, 6, and 10, and Bubba in 12 and 14. Lefties love this place because it's easier to fade the ball than it is to draw the ball. Not that guys fade it and draw it. They do it all the time. But it's easier and more reliable to fade the ball. So if you're a lefty here, you're going to fade a lot. So Bhatia, Akshay Bhatia could make a little noise this week. But if I was going to go with a first-timer, I would go with Ludwig. I just think he's better and better equipped for this. However, Bhatia is hot, man. I mean, you can't discount the fact that the guy's really playing great. So, but I would take Ludwig over Akshay.
All right, Steve, our obligatory Tiger question before we get out of here. Does he make the cut? 20 seconds.
Oh, man, with the weather. I'm going to say he makes the cut but withdraws. But if the weather's bad, he might withdraw before the cut's made because he's going to have to play 30 holes on Friday because of the weather tomorrow. So I'm going to say no.
All right, no it is. Steve, always appreciate it. Who wins, by the way? Is it Scheffler?
I think it's going to be Scheffler, yeah.
All right. Lame. Steve, have a great call down there, man. We'll talk to you soon.
So lame. Goodbye.
There he is. Steve Sands, Golf Channel. Bo Nix, first round pick? Question mark?